Hi guys and welcome back to my second channel. I just feel like yapping today, you know? I've got some stuff. I need to bulk film because I've done my makeup, so I need to bulk film. But I feel like I need to warm up my voice first because I've not really spoken to anyone today. So I'm just going to talk to myself for a bit. I want to talk about how I did not get over my fear of flying. Fear is an understatement. It is a full-blown phobia at this point. And I used to be all right with, by used to be, I mean I'd been flying a few times as a teenager, been to America, been to Canada a few times. Once went to Canada by myself when I was 50, like flew over, didn't just like hang around by myself, flew over to see friends by myself. Didn't faze me, didn't bother me. I don't have any like negative associations or memories with it. It's only after I got back from LA, it was forced upon me. Air Crash Confidential. Those shows, they were just on and I'd watch them and that sparked it. I remember once, I don't even know if this is true, I'm not even going to look it up, but I remember once there was an Air Crash Confidential about, it showed footage of this plane taking off and then like, as it was taking off, the plane exploded. It showed that shaky cam footage. And it was something to do with like a bolt or a nut fell off. It was something ridiculous like that, you know.
Passengers are at life and death risk when planes are badly built. When engineers make mistakes. As they settle in, the plane climbs up towards its cruising height. 14,000 feet above the Atlantic, TWA 800 and everyone on board is blown out of the sky.
So I would watch those shows and become horrified. And it's not like, you know, if from the age of 20, it's not like I had the kind of income to be able to go flying and go on holidays regularly and that type of thing, you know. And I started to get nightmares, really bad nightmares about being trapped in a plane as it crashed. It's a recurring thing. I still get it, you know. And I moved to London and I am broke for so long. So there's never an opportunity to just, I don't know, fly to Ireland or fly to Scotland. Or there's never an opportunity. There's never spare, like there's never 40 quid lying around to be able to like hop on a Ryanair flight and go to Italy for the day. There's never that because I would spend that 40 quid on Coke. Do you know what I mean? So the longer I went without flying, the worse it obviously got until it turned into a monster in my brain that I wouldn't really talk about. And I remember once talking to one of my friends. Where's he work? He does some sort of like aero engineering job, you know, really good job, right? And we were talking once about it and he was like, yeah, so, you know, the way it works is someone checks, say one part of the plane, like I don't know, say someone checks this like square cube of the plane, then their supervisor has to check it, and then their supervisor has to check it, and then their supervisor has to check it. And I was like, really? It has to go through that many checks? And he was like, yes, obviously. And I was like, well, it's not obvious to me because like I've got a very overactive imagination, so education for me is always my friend, because otherwise I just assume that people aren't really, like when it comes to planes anyway, people aren't really bothering to do their job properly, or like human error is like most of the, like, isn't it always the cause for crashes? But I think I was just assuming that like yeah, they just fly around and people might check them, but if they can be bothered, you know, because that's, I have to stop relating my life to other people's jobs, because yes, that would be my life, like not being bothered to do anything. But that's clearly not the case, right? And I was like, oh, okay. I've got some other friends who have worked on airplanes and they've said to me it's totally safe. It has to be.
All 346 passengers and crew are killed.
And then almost 2 years ago, my boyfriend forced me to go to the south of France because he's French. So I had to go see his home. He forced me to do it. And I did not prep at all. We were flying, obviously. I didn't prep at all for the flight. I just I don't think I believed that I was going to go through with it. Even when I was sitting down on the plane seat, I don't think I quite believed I was. And then when they closed the doors, I felt trapped, and my first response was to be fuming. But I'm British, so I wasn't like outwardly fuming or outwardly making a scene. I was just internally just like, I never forgive any of these people. They're going to kill me. And the flight over was uneventful because it only took an hour to the south of France. And I felt good about it. I felt like, oh, yeah, I've done it. I'm fine. And then on the flight back, we experienced turbulence whilst taking off. And it was quite a big, I did a video on this a podcast on this almost 2 years ago, talking about how I was just a bit traumatized by that and having a car crash in France as well. I ain't keen on travel. You know when people say, oh well, like the most dangerous part of flying is actually driving to the airport. Firstly, I know all the stats, so don't tell me anything because I already know. Secondly, I don't like being in cars either. I don't like being in trains. I don't like when the train has turbulence. People laugh at me, but they do when the train's all bumpy. You know the train from like London to Milton Keynes? If you're American, forgive you for not knowing. At certain points, the train does like this, so you kind of sitting there sideways like, this is fine, this is okay.
This is fine.
I ain't keen on that either, right? But flying, it's a bit more in your face because it's 35,000 feet up in the air. Not keen on that part. Fun fact, I used to go hang gliding with my father when I was little. Weren't bothered by that, but rattling around in a tin can. I mean, hang gliding, you are open to the elements as well. Like, you don't have the security of a tin can. Anyway, experiencing turbulence on the way back from the south of France put me off flying again. I was like, I'm never doing that again. I thought I was going to die because you have to remember, I have had at this point probably hundreds of nightmares where the plane starts to crash and I'm in it. So when we felt that turbulence when we were taking off, I really thought, oh God, those dreams, they were premonitions. I'm psychic and I'm dead. But recently I've been trying to get over my fear of flying. I've been trying to come to terms with it. I know what it symbolizes. My fear of flying is a fear of death. That's the only thing I'm actually scared of. So here's what I started to do. Here's what I did do to get over. Not that it worked, but I'll give you some tips as well, right? Education, because like I said, overactive imagination. I catastrophize and think everything is the end of the world. I'm very dramatic. Might not seem it. Up here, different story. So I started off by just watching pilots on YouTube talk about things like turbulence, about what's happening when the plane is taking off, what's happening when the plane is landing, what happens when the plane stalls, how to prevent that. Started watching pilots talk about this stuff. Pilots who have done hundreds, maybe thousands of flights. That helped a little bit.
I've been flying for about 26 years. I've logged over 10,000 hours. In 10,000 hours, I probably had maybe one or two instances where it was a little scary to me, which is not bad for 10,000 hours of flying.
I found a YouTube channel called Trendy, and it's this bloke, I forget his name, but it's this guy, and he does a lot of he does either travel challenges, like getting from A to B via train or plane, or he does a lot of first class reviews of planes, not of the planes itself, of the actual tickets, like Emirates and the double-decker Airbuses and that type of thing. So I've been watching his channel a lot, and it's like, oh well, he's done quite a fair number of videos and he's still alive. That doesn't really help me though. Knowing the stats doesn't help, because most people have an optimism bias towards themselves. They think that they will definitely meet their targets, reach their goals. They overestimate their own abilities. I have some sort of pessimism bias where I think, okay, so 1 in every 12 million planes crash, something like that, and of that 0% are fatal, and most of the time it's not totally fatal. A few people might die. Very rare does everyone die. I look at that stat and go, it's me. I'm going to be the one out of that has the crash and subsequently dies. So knowing the stats, it helps kind of, but it also doesn't. I think it's I kind of think it's a form of narcissism. It is a bit self-absorbed to think I'm that special, that I'm going to be the one that's going to render the statistics for, I don't know, Western Hemisphere planes, I'm going to rewrite the entire narrative. Do you know what I mean? And every time I think of something to do with planes, I Google it. Google is your friend as long as you're looking at reputable sources, news sources, or whatnot. Like, I Googled what happens if a plane stalls. They don't anymore. When was the last stall? I think it was like 2009, 2008 maybe. Either that or it was like 1989, one of the two. The last time a plane stalled, they rewrote basically the aerial system so that that fault didn't exist anymore. Because it's not like cars. If there's a car fault and, you know, there's a seatbelt issue, the manufacturer might say, bring your cars back. They don't tend to bother that much, you know. Or do that. I might be lying there. I might be lying. But with planes, whenever they find a fault, they ground every plane of that type until it's sorted. So with stalling, not only did they sort out the issue because one plane stalled once, and I don't think everyone on it died. I think a few people did. By a few, maybe like a third. And they changed the way they train the pilots. So a pilot now has to do something like 200 stalls on purpose whilst training, and then take the airplane out of the, like, get it out of the stall, you know, so it becomes second nature. So if the plane somehow does stall, they'll be able to sort it out. What happens if all the engines fault? Though they shouldn't, because every system on a plane has like 4 backup systems. But if somehow all of the engines did fault, you can glide for about 60 miles or so, glide to the nearest airfield. See, I hear that kind of stuff and I'm like, oh, okay, so that'd be fine over, I don't know, mainland Europe. But what if you're going from England to America and you're over all that sea? I ain't gonna be out in the sea. You ever seen Deep Blue Sea? Not doing it. Also, plane stalling isn't the same as a car stalling. So when a car stalls, you have to restart the engine. I don't drive, I don't know. But when a plane stalls, it's to do with the air sticking to the wing or the wing not having enough lift. Something like that. So Google is your friend. Like, more education. Because when I'm saying all this stuff, I know that my phobia is irrational. That's what phobias are, right? But it feels rational to me because you are in a tube flying in the air. I know logically that airplanes are completely safe. And yet, the next thing that helped somewhat was immersion therapy, because my phobia was so bad that I didn't even really like looking at planes in the sky, because I feel like I'm going to go on a watch list for saying something like this. I felt as though if I stare at the plane that's going past in the sky and then something, God forbid, happens to that plane, well, I'd be traumatized for life, but also, like, I had a bad superstitious feeling. That's the only way I can describe it. So I didn't like it whenever, like, you're near an airport and the airplanes are going over low. Now, if you've seen on my main channel, my House of Night video, I've spoken a little bit about how we've just been on the move for the past 3 months and how it has sucked. We stayed in Airbnb for a few weeks while sorting out, well, finding this temporary accommodation, basically. We stayed in Airbnb for a few weeks and we were right next to the airport, as in stone's throw. As in, when we pulled up, an airplane was coming into land or taking off, whatever, and it was so close. It was loud. I needed my headphones. I was freaking out. I did not like it. Every 5 minutes you heard planes go overhead of this Airbnb. Now, my boyfriend is very well traveled. He's been on a lot of flights in his lifetime. He's been to a lot of, like, he's lived around the world. He grew up on an island, not England. So he doesn't care about planes. He finds it totally normal, nothing to worry about. He's fine with it. Even he admitted to me after we left the Airbnb that at one point it worried him a little bit because they are just flying so low and overhead, and it's all you can hear every few minutes. I couldn't even do any filming until like 1 o'clock in the morning when all the planes went to bed or whatever. The first few days, it sounded as though a plane was going to land on the Airbnb and crush us. I kept having intrusive thoughts of just like looking over there and then the plane like taking all of that out of me, sitting here like, this is fine. So living in this Airbnb for a few weeks was basically just exposure therapy, immersion therapy, because they were flying constantly. Every time I went outside, I would see them. And at first, I just pretended they weren't there, put my headphones on, put my hat on, ignored them. But after a few days, started to watch them a little bit. There's this kind of grassy area you can go to and you can watch the planes come in. people were doing it when there was that storm and the planes were all trying to land. And they all landed successfully in England. Don't know about other countries. And after a few days, I was kind of like, actually, it is kind of cool. Look at the double-decker ones. It is cool. They are massive. And because I had a bit of a change of heart and I became more normalised to, you know, the noise and everything to do with them, my boyfriend decided that we would... I don't get to decide anything, do I? That we would go to Belgium, go to Brussels. Because I wanted to go for my birthday. I wanted to go. I wanted to eat some waffles. I wanted to just chill out a little bit after the last few months. Of course, initially I assumed that we would do Eurostar, because if you book a month or two in advance, Eurostar is actually pretty cheap. Not a week before. So the planes were the cheaper option. And I, at the time, went, okay, screw it. Let's do it. Fine. Like, let's just get it over and done with. I've prepped quite a lot. I've watched so many videos. I've read so many articles. I feel like I do know more about planes than the average person now. So whenever someone wants to hit me with that little stat of like, driving to the airport is the most like dangerous part. Shut up. I know more than you about planes now. But I still kind of thought, oh, it's not going to happen until the day before. And then the day before the trip, I started freaking out a little bit. I freaked out. I was like, I'm not going. You go. I'll meet you there. I'll get the Eurostar. I don't care. I don't have the money to be paying 200 bloody quid for a bloody Eurostar ticket. But I'll do it. And I vented, and that helped. It always helps to vent and to talk about your fears. Oh, that's another thing that helped. Because I would be quite worried about, well, what if you're on the plane and all the technology's fine, but the people aren't, you know what I'm getting at. Turns out, I didn't see, there are just things that I just don't know. Maybe I'd know if I was a regular flyer. The cockpits are locked because of 9/11. During flights, they're locked. I did not know that until a few weeks ago. Because I would worry, like, oh, what if something like that ever happened again? You know, even I think it was like 2 decades ago, someone planted a bomb on, I want to say, a plane that was in Greece, taken off from Greece. And the bomb went off on the plane. It killed 5 people, but the rest were fine. And the pilot landed the plane, just landed it back at the airport. Things like that really help because I have a very overactive imagination. I don't even like taking the tube because once in a while someone gets a machete and goes on the tube and starts chopping at people. I'm not fear-mongering. It's a thing that has happened at least once in the past year. Look it up. On the Hammersmith and City line, I think. So then on the day of us flying out, I just tried to convince myself that I was excited. I was really excited, you know, I'd be in a different country for bloody once. I'd be out of this miserable little island for just a second and things would go smoothly and everything was normal. Because apparently excitement and nervousness, or excitement and anxiety, are very closely linked. So you can gaslight yourself into feeling excited when you're actually nervous. I sat by the window because I was like, I'm going to just embrace this. I'm not even really going to listen to my music. I'll have my headphones on just because I can't stand loud noises anymore. I had my Vampire Survivors mobile game ready because it's just, I don't know, if you've got ADHD, it really scratches an itch, that game. And we got on the plane, and even in the little walkthrough up to the plane, I was saying to myself, I can't believe you're doing this. Just leave. Just leave. Just walk. Go home. Go home right now. We get on the plane. I'm still thinking go home. The only thing that stopped me from turning around and getting off the plane was my stiff upper lip English sensibilities. Obviously not all English people are like this, but I'm certainly that type that can't make a scene in public because I'm just too full of shame, I suppose. Can't do it. So I was like, right, I've got to commit now. I'm sitting in this seat. I can't make a scene and leave. So I guess I will just die. I also read once someone said that a pilot told them if you count to 10 after takeoff, like just after you left off the ground, and you get to 10 and you're fine, then you're going to be okay, because the hardest part is getting all of that weight off the ground. I don't know if that's true, but I counted to 10. It helped. I utilised some breathing techniques that my old therapist once told me, which is like breathe in for free, hold for free, out for free, hold for free, breathe in. It helps regulate your breathing, helps like chill you out. I was doing all of that. I leant into it, had my sandwich from Pret VLT. So good. I don't know what they did. That is the most middle class thing I've ever said, I think. I don't know what they do to their shiitake mushrooms at Pret, but oh my, so umami, so like, I'm really hungry. I always film these videos when I'm really hungry and I look like a maniac because I'm like crying over food. I was watching the wing, watching how it automatically adjusted for slight turbulence or like wind change or whatever. I liked that from London to Brussels there wasn't loads of clouds, so I could still see, like, I could see the channel, could see all the wind farms, like that was exciting and stuff. Because I don't like it when you're above the clouds and then that's all you can see, clouds. It just feels like you're dead in heaven or whatever. I don't like that. I like where you can still see the ground because it feels like you're not as high up. I don't know. As soon as I finished my sandwich, the person on the thing is like, okay, we're going to get ready to land now. Because London to Brussels is like 45 minutes, less than that. In fact, we were like 10 minutes early. It was insanely quick. I was so impressed. I don't mind the takeoff and I don't mind the landing. That bit doesn't bother me. The bit that bothers me the most is being up 35,000 feet going at like 300 miles an hour. That bit I don't like that bit. So we land and I'm like, oh my God, I did it. And it wasn't the worst thing ever. Like, that was fine. It was all right. It wasn't long. I had my moments of anxiety, but I just distracted myself with a game, or I listened to a bit of Michael Cromance, or I just ate a bit of food, drunk a bit of water. If you're anxious, drink some water. It does help. And then we returned. We spent the weekend in Brussels. Lovely time. Great city. Really enjoyed myself. And after the flight back, I was texting people like, never again. Not doing it again. I have a friend. He works in film. He takes more planes than trains or buses, you know. I texted him the other day. He was like, oh, I just flew out to France this morning. I'll be back tomorrow. Like, sometimes he has to fly to a location just to hand over a prop. And he goes home or something like that. So my friends that are very frequent flyers were like my little cheerleading team, giving me pep talks, being like, you're absolutely fine, you're absolutely fine. I was. Until the flight back, and I don't know. I kind of know what it is, but I'm not sure. I'm trying to intellectualize. I'm trying to assess, introspect, get to the bottom of it. I think so already on the flight back, there were delays of about an hour where they weren't letting us off on the plane, and old overactive imagination here was like, oh my God, that's because the plane is going to explode. We flew with British Airways. I had to keep telling myself British Airways has not had a crash since it's something like 1989. Not had a crash since 1989. But then I thought, but you know, they can't not have a crash forever. So obviously it's going to be the one that you're on. Also, did you guys know that Ryanair and EasyJet have never had a crash? Ryanair, I thought people always mugging them off and making fun of Ryanair, like Ryan's airline. Who's Ryan? Never had a crash. But yeah, the delay didn't help because I just automatically assumed the worst. I don't assume it's something banal like, oh, the flight crew probably isn't here yet because they're probably on a different flight that's been delayed or whatnot. I just immediately jump to, it's because the plane's going to explode. Like, bits are falling off it. There's something just chaotic nonsense in my head. So that wasn't fun. The weather, when we'd left to go to Brussels, the weather was nice. Coming back, the weather was a bit crap, and it got dark because it was like 5 p.m. So that didn't really help things. I didn't sit at the window seat. I chose to sit in the middle, but I think that was to my detriment because when I was at the window seat before, I could embrace it and I could see a lot more, and I could tell myself this is fine, this is normal. Being a bit away and having, you know, more of my view obscured. Again, the overactive imagination. And we didn't experience really any turbulence, so it wasn't that, because even like when we went into Brussels when we were getting ready to descend, the plane was a little bit bumpy and I just grit my teeth and I was like, this is fine, it's normal, plain and jelly, like shake it around. Like, no plane has ever crashed from turbulence. The way that they design, when they're designing the wings can withstand more G's than there actually are in nature. On the flight back, I was convinced that I could feel the plane speeding up and slowing down, which is normal. But I kept convincing myself that every time it was slowing down is because we were just going to crash and fall out the sky, even though I know that like planes, they don't fall out of the sky. They don't do the cartoon thing of like nose diving. It just doesn't really happen. It's not how they're designed. For some reason, I hated it and I could not relax. I couldn't be still. My boyfriend said maybe it's because, you know, you're more excited about going to Brussels and like seeing a new culture that you've never like been around before and there were things to look forward to, but going back, it's, you know, you have to go back to work, you have to go back to the misery of your life. He didn't say that, paraphrasing. But actually, I don't know, because I had a holiday and I didn't have my laptop with me, so I couldn't do any work at all or any revising or anything like that. And I was quite looking forward to coming back so I could get on with work and revising and have like a fresh. So I don't know if that's what it was, but I just could not relax. And it felt like you could feel everything, every slight movement of the plane. I did the thing of looking at the flight attendants, and they were fine. Of course they were. Like, there was nothing wrong with the flight itself. I mean, even when we landed, we bounced on the tarmac, and that did nothing to me. It didn't shit me up. I just thought it was funny more than anything. I swear we skidded a bit, like did a little bit drifting. Didn't mind that at all. But just when we were in the sky, something was triggering me really badly, and I couldn't relax at all. For like 45 minutes, I was sweating. And then, well, I wasn't actually sweating, but I got dizzy. I got dizzy and like disorientated. I don't know what that was about. I felt so dizzy and gross. And I'm not really one that gets like motion sickness that much, but it was horrible. And it just feels like I'm not exactly back to square one, because I have done it. I survived. Big surprise, I survived a normal commercial flight. My friends keep saying the bigger ones, the bigger planes, you don't feel anything, which I do know to be the case because I have gone to Canada and the US before. But it just feels like if I can't hack a short flight, 45 minutes, if I can't deal with that very well emotionally, because before we left, actually, I was getting so stressed out. I was convinced I was going to wake up with a head of just like grey hair, like to the point that the stress almost negated the enjoyment of the holiday, you know? If I can't hack a short flight, how am I going to hack a 5-hour flight on a bigger? How am I going to do that? I don't know if I can, which is really annoying because I'd like to go to Greece. There are so many countries I've never visited. I've never visited Spain or Germany or any of Scandinavia, Egypt, the pyramids, Japan. I was about to say North Korea then. Don't think that's going to happen. South Korea, Greece. I really, really, really want to go to Greece because I started like last year a second A level in classical civilization because I really like ancient Greece and mythology and that type of thing. And as part of the course, it says if you get a chance to go to Greece, then do. If you book in advance, like flying seems a lot more inexpensive than it was years ago. Because I swear, to go to America like decades ago, showing my age there, a decade ago, it was like $1,000 and a half, like $1,500. Like I'd be saving up all year for that type of thing, for that type of holiday. But now I've seen you can get a return flight to New York from London for about £400. There are all these places and things that I want to do. I would love to make travel content because it would just be me having a bit of a moan, complaining in different countries, you know, a bit like Carl Pilkington. I would really love to do travel content of a sort, but I don't know how I've tried to do everything right. And it just feels like I'm on square two, you know? I know that some airlines do those courses specifically for nervous flyers where they fly you up and they talk you all through it and yada yada yada, but I think it's a bit expensive and it's like a couple £100. Maybe one of those companies should do it for me for free and in return I can film content. But that's all I wanted to talk about, really. Just a little chat, like a mini podcast. Is this what I'm doing? I'm turning this channel into my podcast channel because I miss just yapping. Oh yeah, and I've quit doing my podcast because I personally can't maintain doing 3 channels, doing all of the stuff that I do outside of YouTube, doing my A-levels and writing. So out of my 3 channels, obviously I'm not going to give up my main channel, but the podcast just kind of it's on hiatus. Maybe permanent, maybe temporary. It'll depend on if I pass my philosophy A-level this year. Anyway, that's all for this video. I literally just want to I don't know if anyone will find this interesting. I want to chat about how I tried to conquer my flight phobia and I failed. Not too miserably, but I did fail. Maybe that's just me being pessimistic again. I don't know. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. I can hear a bloody plane right now. Release me. Bye.